Good afternoon, everyone. I'm aware that we're approaching the end of what's been a day full with information. What are the main things to consider when it comes to immigration and going to the UK? Well, the first thing I would just like to put into everyone's mind is that you can't do everything on a business visa in the UK. In fact, the number of activities which are permitted on a business visa are actually rather limited. They're only suited to sort of the first few short visits that you might make to the UK to investigate the market, to have meetings with potential partners, and that kind of thing. But you really can't do anything that might be constituted as work, really. You can't sit at a desk and do your day-to-day work from the UK for any length of time, really more than a couple of days on a business visitor visa. So when you're planning your venture to the UK and setting up business over there, you really need to think very carefully from the outset about the visa question and make sure that you are planning correctly and that you're getting the correct type of visa, which will give you the full flexibility to carry out the type of activities that you will need to do. So I've just highlighted on this slide the main categories which I think are applicable to our audience here today. The first being the sole representative visa. So if you want to set up a branch office in the UK and keep your main operations over in India, but just have a representation in the UK, then the sole representative visa is probably the right visa for one of your employees to obtain. Secondly, the next option might be an entrepreneur visa, and that's if you personally are the entrepreneur driving the business and you want to go and spend some time actually running the company in the UK, and you're one of the majority shareholders of that company as well. And you may already have operations here in India and want to expand that into the UK, or you may just want to start a completely new venture in the UK. So for that scenario, you probably would want an entrepreneur visa. And the minimum funds required for this type of visa are £200,000. Or you can also fulfill the requirements by having a £50,000 loan. And I understand a statistic I picked up today, in fact, is that we are, the UK is the third lowest country globally in terms of the minimum balance that we require you to have for this type of visa. Lastly, quite a new type of visa that's been brought in recently to replace or to offer an alternative to what used to be available for students after graduation in the UK is the graduate entrepreneur visa, and that's quite an exciting opportunity for graduates in the UK, and it gives them, it's kind of like a baby version of the entrepreneur visa. It's a little bit easier to get that visa if you have the right qualifications in terms of the funds required. So once you've established your company in the UK, if you want to bring over people with the expert skills from India or elsewhere outside of the European Union, then you will need to obtain a sponsor license. And aside from visas, we offer a full assistance to obtain the sponsor license. Much like you need a driving license in order to drive, you need a sponsor license in order to sponsor overseas workers with the correct skills for your company. So that's really step one before you can bring over any skilled workers. And then we have the points-based system in the UK, which is divided into 5 tiers, but the main tier that you would be concerned with is the skilled workers tier, which is tier 2. And I've highlighted on this slide, but I'll be happy to answer further questions later, just the kind of main 2 subcategories within Tier 2, and just highlighted there on either the intra-company transfer or the Tier 2 general route what the minimum salaries are, because something I hear quite often in India when I'm attending these type of events is people have a perception that the minimum salary is actually very, very high. In fact, for Tier 2 general, the minimum salary for a worker on that category would be £20,000, which I think it's fair to say is the minimum that you can really survive on in London, to live any kind of decent life, really. And there are some tricks that we can help you with, whereby you can make up that minimum salary with some housing allowances and per diem allowances. So just very quickly, £20,000 on the Tier 2 General, and for intra-company transfer, it's a little bit higher, but still £24,000. So happy to take any more questions that you might have about that later. And then just last but not least, the things that have been introduced in the last 12 months which make the application process rather easier for Indian nationals applying from India include the online payment option. It's now possible to pay for your visa online, whereas in the past, I know a lot of our clients lost quite a few days trying to prepare demand drafts, so that's no longer necessary if you wish to avoid that. Secondly, the priority processing services. There's now sort of 3 main options which can make things go much more quickly because time is always of the essence. So there are options for those applying for visitor visas to get the visa processed actually on the same day. And if you become a sponsor who's moving a large volume of skilled workers to the UK and you fulfill certain criteria, you may also apply for the Business Express program, which can mean your workers can go from applying for the visa to being actually in the UK within a very short space of time. The visa processing time can be reduced to 2 to 5 working days. And aside from that, there's a prime time service as well for those who find it difficult during the working day to actually attend the visa application centre. You can now also apply for your visa outside of the usual office hours. So that's where I'll leave it for now, and hand over to my partners here on the panel, but I'll be happy to take any questions should anyone have any. Thank you.